So I mean, obviously you're making things like you just said that no one else is making. At the beginning, when you started making things kind of, quote unquote, out of the ordinary, were there people that were kind of like, maybe don't do that, or all right, I guess we'll see how this one works.
Yeah, for sure. There was always a little bit of a, are you sure you want to do that? But
Right.
my business partners, they trust me. So we all kind of have like our own particular role, and my role happens to be entirely on the creative distillery side. My brother does like the accounting. One of my other business partners is the marketing. One of them is the PhD plant geneticist who runs our bar program and is actually going to start breeding peas specifically for our usage. And then the last business partner, he's the only one that ever really gives me shit, but it's his job to. He's an efficiency engineer.
Mhm.
Continuous improvement is like the terminology. He basically always tries to eliminate waste through, improving processes and like, reducing hours for, like by having less people on, like if we don't need it. Kind of, that's like his whole role. And he really, really specializes and does this for huge companies, that, have these massive, billion-dollar warehouses, and, all these processes. And he brings that expertise to us. And so he'll a lot of times be like, it's like, do we need to do this? It's like, what if it, doesn't turn out good? But in the end, I mean, they all trust me, and they trust that, I'm going to make a product that at the very least, you know, in my experience, there's going to be a market for. It's
Mhm.
probably not going to sell, a million bottles worth, but also I'm making, with these experimental ones, anywhere between, and the quantities I shoot for is between 100 and about 250 bottles. So it's not going to sit forever no matter what, especially if we're using it for cocktails, behind the bar. And, our bar can make some amazing cocktails. So, it's always, for me personally, and they've realized like it's worth it to do this because a couple of our products, that come out of this, I actually forgot to mention one was actually a Korean soju. So this is one
Oh.
that technically has been made before, but no one in New Jersey has made it. And more importantly, too, even in Korea, the soju that now we recognize as soju here in the green bottles is not
Mhm.
real soju. So I met randomly at a bar. I tend to like meet really interesting people at bars, and I'm not one of the people that like just randomly talks to people. I never do that, but I sometimes just like very randomly I'll just start up a conversation because I noticed something or I talked or whatever, and they end up being the coolest people ever. This person happens to be a rice wine sommelier from Korea. She's absolutely amazing, and she's working on opening her own rice wine, Korean rice wine place. But in the meantime, she studied in Korea under all these masters on how to make rice wine, and she's familiar with the soju, and just randomly met her at a bar and started talking, and we were like, let's collaborate and make real Korean soju, the way that it was made traditionally before they had a famine and they had to cut of the use of rice from alcohol. They basically banned it because they wanted all the rice to go to actual food. And so that's when like the real Korean rice soju kind of died out. It's slowly making a comeback now, and there's a bunch of really good ones on the market. But in the U.S., at least, we're still so far away from it. And we made it, me and her name's Ji-sung. We made it so traditionally that it's currently being distributed to Korean Michelin star restaurants in New York City.
Whoa.
Because yeah, and it's being imported by the only Korean master som in the entire world, who has a soju importing business, and he's bringing on my product, and it has his seal on it, which literally says importer of the real soju. So that's how like legitimately I made it. Like I imported all this Korean rice in order to do it. I used like the real starter and everything. And so a lot of times like that was originally just one of these one-offs, but it was so like popular and so well received that now it's one of my main products that's also always available. And so a lot of times when I make stuff like this, it has the potential potentially to be one of our main products, to have some recognition.
That's
So I
I congratulations.
yeah,
That's awesome.
thank you.
I mean, you're making such amazing things, and like you said, you're not looking to sell millions of bottles of these things. Like you just want, like you have an idea, and you go out and do it, and it seems like it's working. And obviously, your fan base, your client base, knows you guys for your off the wall different takes on all these spirits, and there's so many people out there that might have ideas, or like they might even do it at their home. Like they might grab something from the shelf and then go home and try to make some weird concoction on their own. But you're doing it for other people, and I mean obviously for yourself, because you have all these ideas, and you have especially when it comes to the research of it, you seem to love to just kind of delve into all that. Where where are some rabbit holes you've kind of gone down that you are still trying to figure out how to make it, but you just haven't quite figured it out yet?
So actually, I for the fall for next year specifically, I have 3 out of my 4 releases already figured out. The
Mm.
summer one is the summer one. I know what I want to do, but this is another one where I don't know how I'm going to accomplish it. Um, so I'm basically I'm still thinking. I'm trying to mess with it. So I don't know if you're familiar with pork roll and Taylor ham. It's like
I was
a
gonna
thing.
I was
Yeah.
gonna bring it up earlier because Jersey is very known for their Taylor ham. So yes, for people
Yeah.
who are not from Jersey or have not been to Jersey and experienced Taylor ham, explain to them what Taylor ham is.
So I mean I don't really even know how to describe it. It's like a processed, pork product. I mean, kind of think Spam, but like I think it's way better than Spam. And I mean,
Yeah.
obviously most people in New Jersey also think that. Um, but I mean, the most interesting part about all of it, like, I mean, so I mean, wherever your listening base knows, it's like you get like a bagel with typically like bacon, egg, and cheese. It's like a pretty
Mm.
standard, order around the country. Um, in New Jersey, most likely, if you're ordering, you're gonna get a pork roll, egg and cheese, or a Taylor ham, egg and cheese. And I say those 2 names specifically because there's this massive, massive debate between, between people, and it's kind of skewed between like the northern part of the state and the southern part of the state
Yep.
on
I've heard this.
whether or not
Yeah.
on whether or not it's one name or the other.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's interesting. And so my idea for the summer spirit is that because of the Jersey Shore, because it's also one of those things you do on the Jersey Shore, is to make a pork roll / Taylor ham spirit. And it's so weird when you're like trying to like match flavors of something like that. Like what what do you even do? And I have some ideas. I want to kind of tackle it almost like ingredient by ingredient in order to try to match it, but there's a lot of really cool stuff with I don't know if you're familiar with Pechuga. It's
No.
a type of mezcal. It's a
Oh,
celebratory
okay.
mezcal that comes from Mexico, where they distill it through, typically like the breast of like a turkey,
Huh.
and so that's or like a chicken or whatever, and that's like pechuga is like breast. That's like the name for it, and so they'll make it for like celebrations. And so I tried it this past for the Thanksgiving event that I described. I had like an extra shot that I did where I took our agave spirit and I distilled it through turkey bacon, and it actually did pick up a lot of that smokiness. It was really cool. But that might be like kind of one of the directions I need to go is trying to capture a little bit of the meat essence through a distillation. But there's like so much more to it. There's like, the salinity and all these other aspects to it that I'm confident it's going to be really, really cool. And I think the funniest part too is kind of the gimmick we want to do is we want to release, when I make it, I want to release 125 bottles that say pork roll on them and 125 that say Taylor ham on them. And I'm really like, it'll be an internal competition, or maybe we'll put it somewhere like an updater, like a clicker, and it will let people know, which one's winning, which one's selling better, and maybe that'll decide it once and for all.
Just so they know it's the exact same one. It's just different labels. It's gonna be amazing.
Just different labels. Yep.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was in the wine world for 14 years, and there's a big grocery store down here called H-E-B, and they are very keen on having their own product that you could only get at H-E-B, which I get, makes sense. But like what they would do with wine, it would still be the national wine, like let's say Kendall Jackson or Stella Rosa or whatever, but it would just say Reserve on it. And I had people swear up and down that it was different than it was at like Kroger or Walmart or what. I was like, no, it's the exact same juice. It's just a different label. And they're like, no, it's totally different. And I'm like, all right, if that's what you want to think, go right ahead. But I guarantee you it's the exact same thing. Now, what's great about you guys is that you put a lot of your cocktails on your menu or on your website, and then obviously at the distillery itself. But when it comes to creating all these different variations and takes on these spirits, how do you then make cocktails with them? Because I know a lot of times you could just drink them straight because of what you're trying to go for taste-wise. But do your staff have a really fun and sometimes challenging job of trying to figure out how to mix it with other things to make certain cocktails?
I would say yes and no. I mean, a lot of times when I make it, at first they're like, what are we going to do with it? But the moment they really start like experimenting and, usually actually it's funny, by the end of like that spirit's like life, in terms of, running out of bottles, by the end of it, it's like their favorite one to make new cocktails with. Because I mean, you get like, at first it's like this very strange flavor and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with it? But then it becomes like, oh, like, how am I going to live without it? And that kind of happened with, so the Kvass spirit that's currently on the website. We're down to only a handful of bottles, like in the actual distillery. We still have them for sale on the website, cause that's being stored in a separate warehouse, for shipping. But like, my staff is literally like, when are you going to make something like this? Because, we use this for everything. But in the beginning, it was very much like it sat around for quite a long time, and with like very slow sales until they really figured out what they wanted to do with it. And then it started flying. So I make it hard on them for sure, and I also make it very hard on the marketing person because I'm on Yulia. She's marketing my business partner. She's always having to market something completely different and like unknown to a lot of different people, and so I joke around that I'm the one that makes her